Welcome to Unfixed. This podcast explores the intersection of artificial intelligence and the institution of higher education. I am Zach Justice, Professor of Communication Studies and Director of Faculty Development.
I am Nick Janos, Professor of Sociology.
We are employees of Chico State and we will discuss some of our work, but this podcast is not affiliated with Chico State and the views expressed here are not representative of the university. Unfixed is just part of our portfolio. Check out our writing at meltsintoair.org and subscribe to our twice-a-month newsletter where we run down the top AI news stories and connect them to higher education. Hey Nick, how are you doing today?
Good, how are you, Zach?
I'm doing good. I'm ready to talk about AI literacy and we have some special guests with us.
Cool.
Allison Vaughn is the Executive Director of the Center for Teaching and Learning at San Diego State University and a professor in the Department of Psychology, where her research examines social relationships, stigma, and health.
And we're also joined by D.J. Hopkins. He's a professor and the Director of New Faculty Success Programs and AI Programming at San Diego State University. His research interests include Shakespeare and performance and the relationship between performance and the production of space.
Both Allison and DJ have done exceptional work in developing AI curriculum at San Diego State. We have directly benefited from their experience and leadership, and we feel fortunate to have them today for this episode of Unfixed. Team, welcome to the episode.
Thanks for having us.
So we got a couple questions for you. We're going to have a free flow conversation, but we've got a lot to talk about, so let's jump in. I've got the first question. What do you think about as the core components of AI literacy for faculty? Every talking head on LinkedIn and influencer with a terrible persona showing up at universities talks about AI literacy in glowing terms and then immediately moves on to the next topic without ever explaining what it is. So what is it?
I think that's a really good question, and asking us to detail, to like make a list, maybe even a ranked list, is actually a pretty hard challenge. I think that if I had to make a list, if I had to make a list of 2 items, and I don't want to, but it would begin with understanding what generative AI actually is and what it isn't. Like, I'm not just talking about trying something in the prompt window. I mean, understanding what a large language model is at least a basic level, understanding what people mean when they say you're not programming them, you're growing them. I think it helps us understand how this disruptive technology works and what its failure cases are. And this brings me to my second point, and maybe Allison will agree with me on this one. It helps me at least be a better teacher. Because ultimately, again, if I had to choose only 2 things, teaching skills, instructional practices are more important than ever. And when Allison and I talk about AI literacy, when we talk about adapting classes or assignments to the impact of this AI saturated moment, we always advise our faculty, it's a teaching first approach, not a what can I do with these new tools approach. And if you understand the tool, at least at a basic level, it will help you upgrade your teaching practices to meet the moment.
When DJ and I talk about AI literacy, there's lots of different frameworks. And so in our version of the retrofit, we kind of cover a couple of them as like, here's what's out there. Maybe collectively across those things, we can come up with some things that overlap or some things that are maybe very specific or niche to a group. But the EDUCAUSE framework, right? The stuff that DJ was talking about really falls into that technical understanding, kind of moves over into the evaluative understanding, like knowing what they do, knowing what they don't do, knowing how well they do it is a big part of literacy. And I think that's the first step, especially for a lot of faculty. They're like, I don't have time to open this thing and to play with it. And I'm not a computer scientist. I'm not an engineer. I don't want to do math or big models of whatever this is. So the technical and the evaluative is really important. But I really like that the EDUCAUSE framework includes practical and ethical considerations, right? Like, what are we going to do with this? what should we be doing, what shouldn't we be doing, and then how should we be doing it, right? Because I think AI is capable, a lot of these things are capable of doing a lot, not all of it very well, and some of it we shouldn't be doing, which,
Yeah.
like we should just pause sometimes and really think. And that's been some of what's in the news is like somebody asks some AI person to do this with their tool, and they're like, no, it's because they have that ethical understanding and they know what you can do practically with the tool. And so they're standing back and saying, that's not what this is for. And others are like, if you pay me enough, I'll just drive it right in there,
Right.
which is fine.
Yes. We could actually name the two companies that Allison is talking about
No,
right
I'm
now.
good. I'm good.
But I want to jump in here because I so strongly agree with Allison bringing up ethical parameters. Ethical parameters are structural to my conception of AI literacy. They're not just individual, and they're certainly not a decorative or cosmetic add-on. I think that ethical considerations can lead to action, whether we're talking institutionally or in our classrooms, or perhaps importantly, at the ballot box. I think that understanding the ethical parameters, like where did these systems come from, on whose prior labor are they based, and who benefits, these are important parts of AI literacy for me, and not only me. The widely cited Barnard College AI literacy framework includes ethical parameters. The EduCause AI literacy training that Allison mentioned ranks ethical considerations and social impacts above things like getting good at prompting. And I could go on. All of these national models for thinking about AI literacy incorporate ethical parameters and invite faculty, regardless of discipline, to think about ethical issues, again, whether we're talking about social impacts or what we're doing in the classroom.
Yeah. This technology is so interesting because I hear a lot of the training goes into, well, here's how you use it. Here's how you type a prompt in and those kind of things. Then there's the ethical side. But you actually started with something that's kind of fascinating with, here's actually how this technology uses. It made me think like when we're teaching a kid to drive a car, we don't say, well, let's open the engine and understand how like gasoline is lit on fire and these pistons are going and so on and so forth. Or, people like, hey, kid, here's a computer. Let's take it apart and look at the circuit board and then understand, all the layers. And there's something about this technology because of what it is and what it is not. Does seem like we still have to spend some of that time to actually look under the hood technically. And I wonder why that is. And what do you think about that?
Well, I like this analogy. My 17-year-old has started driving. That's a full stop,
Scary.
right? Let me take a breath.
Yeah. Look out.
But he's been in cars his whole life. So he has seen the steering wheel. He has seen the pedals. He has seen how the music gets played. And he has seen everything that goes on around me when we're on the freeway here in San Diego. So he understands at a basic level the operations of a car from the passenger perspective. Generative AI is a still new technology. And when we're bringing it into the classroom and inviting students to write with it, or when we're asking faculty to consider how it impacts their classrooms, it's a little unfamiliar and in some cases even uncanny. It does things that my previous experience with, say, a laptop computer or a typewriter, pen and paper, have not prepared me for.
Yeah.
So understanding the large language model, getting under the hood, actually has helped me wrap my head around some of these uncanny behaviors of generative AI, since I don't have a machine learning degree, since I have, as you said, a background in Shakespeare studies.
Well, it also, I think a lot of the misconceptions and myths are actually stem from a misunderstanding of what they are and are not as under the hood technologies.
So I feel like we could do this particular piece all day. And I'm really thinking back, Nick, to some of the first conversations that we had about this with different constituencies where we're trying to help people understand how training works and stuff like that. And we don't do as much of that anymore. And now I'm wondering about revisiting that. But I do want to push back on, this idea that Allison had about, foregrounding the ethics and, just to a different perspective. What if instead we raced forward and did all the unethical things as fast as possible? Because if we don't do it, a Chinese university is going to do it, and then where would we be? So that's my pushback is that we should take our cue from the major models and disregard all ethical considerations and a race to be the first to do the terrible thing. So,
Heard it here first,
yeah,
folks. Zach's going to lead the way, and
yeah.
we're going to slowly back away.
I was gonna say Allison is not even in the frame anymore. I'm like, I'm gonna let Zach go do that. Tell me how that works
Oh
out.
man, we're joking, but I bet that like there's some senior executive vice something at some universities. It's like, no, let's do it first to do all the terrible things.
Well,
Well,
it's like I
look,
remember when cloning came out, like 20 something years ago. It
Yeah,
was like the same conversation, like who's going to be the first person to clone X, and then it was Y, and then it was like, well, who's going to first clone a human being after they did like a sheep and then a dog or something?
But the first
right.
person who did it waited. Like they did it and didn't tell anybody. So it's kind of the question is
Yeah.
what Zach's saying. Like, are you going to do it and publicly say that you're doing it? Are you going to do it and wait to see what happens and then be like, hey guys, I did the unethical stuff, but
Yeah,
look, it's fine or it's not fine or whatever the
right.
outcomes are.
there's two kinds of labor issues here. We've been in this space before, and you guys in your blog have actually talked about what is it like to be a faculty member at a non R1 university, and how can generative AI help us R1 up our productivity. I was speaking with a colleague yesterday who said, this is literally what he said. I'm working on 12 different papers right now, and they're all at different points of being finished. The problem is I just don't have enough students. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, I don't have enough graduate students to finish the papers for me. Now, I know there are fields in which that's absolutely
Yeah.
the basic way of working,
Mhm.
where you're going to have a relatively short multi-author paper, and it will include graduate students. And some people on that list of authors had the job of doing the bench research, and some were writing it up. That's not how things generally work for me in the humanities, and it's not how things work for me at my state university.
Hmm.
But also, that's a sense of authorship that doesn't say DJ is the sole author of this. And so it's not, I'm going to say something that is vexed, complicated. If I'm using a generative AI in some disciplines to write up my work, Zach, am I doing the unethical thing before someone else can? Or am I doing an ethical variation on what other people are already doing with their cadre of graduate students?
Oh, that's something that Zach and I talk about all the time, right? I mean, if some like a famous podcaster X like has a team of researchers doing the research, or Obama gives the greatest speech we've ever heard, and it turns out, of course, somebody else wrote it. He didn't write it. These are the kind of things where are they equivalent? Was the old way in which the elites had all the access to their assistants, was that unethical? Or, we just normalize it as like, of course, that's what they do. They just have everybody do all the work for them, and they come in and do X amount of work on their own to make it their own, but then they get the rewards of tenure and promotion, or, getting
Right.
elected or whatever, right? That is a
Right.
really, I don't know the answer to that one, but it's a great comparison there.
And here's the second conundrum. If this were to be adopted, would it impact our retention, tenure, and promotion policies? DJ's expected to write 2 articles a year and a book every 5 to 10 years. Well, let's double that for the Gen Z professor we're hiring in a couple of years, because we just assume Professor Gen Z will be using AI and will be twice as productive as old DJ over there.
I'm serving on faculty affairs right now, our faculty affairs committee at San Diego State, and we haven't gotten into that yet, but the AI conversation around retention, tenure, and promotion, like the process of that. And so I was in a meeting yesterday. None of us wanted to touch it. We're like, we don't want to police it. We don't want to forbid it. We don't want to. So our kind of best first step was to say, hey, note, generative AI sometimes is very, very, very wrong. And so,
Mhm.
like, kind of let the buyer beware. And also, it is against the law. There's lots of privacy things if you're going to upload any part or
Oh
portion,
yeah.
which includes all of it,
Right.
of a candidate's dossier. So it's like that's the first step we're taking as the Faculty Affairs Committee, which sort of is, our job is to figure out what faculty can and cannot do. And that's like at the base level, because some folks are using AI, for example, to write a rebuttal letter. So I am getting
Oh.
denied tenure or I'm getting denied promotion. And
Hmm.
60 pages later, most of which is hallucinated. I
Oh
don't
no.
really think that helps you make your case for
No.
why they should keep you. But no one in our policy, no one in our rules have said that you can't do it.
Yeah,
And this
Yeah.
is an AI literacy matter, right?
Yes,
it
yes,
is.
Hmm.
Mostly when we think of
100%.
like AI literacy for faculty, I've got my head in the classroom, but also does
Oh,
every article I write need an AI disclosure statement? I did X with my own little organic brain, but the first draft of the abstract was prepared by Claude 4.6 and the bibliography. But like, do I need to have, I don't know a journal in my field that has a requirement yet
ooh.
for an
All
AI
of mine do.
disclosure statement. Oh, very,
All of
very
mine
cool.
do. Yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it depends on where you're sending stuff because lots of them are like,
Yeah.
I need to know what you did. And so it
Yeah.
could be as easy as I didn't use it at all.
I mean,
Well,
those
It
things
could be
seems
I
like,
made a table or a
uh-huh.
graph, right? Which thank you, Claude. You make beautiful graphs when I tell you what I want it to look like, as opposed to me Googling for 3 hours how to
All
get
right.
Excel to make the thing I want it to make. I just tell
Right.
Claude and he, she, they are like, here you go, Allison. I'm thinking, thank you.
I mean, on one hand, in a few years, those things, those kind of statements and requirements might just look silly. I mean, that's one case in
Yeah.
which this becomes so embedded into everything that there is no distinguishing between
Right.
human and machine at this point, just like there isn't with so many of our systems that we use. On the other hand, it could even harden into a somehow, well, there's really no way to police it, but a real like this is handcrafted and everything gets a
Mm-hmm.
label in which you can get certified as handcrafted, and maybe there's a whole bunch of like evidence you have to prove to do that, and those get evaluated, maybe even get held up as like gold standard as if you get that label, and then everything else is sort of like
Right.
AI slop or the hybrid
Right.
generation kind of thing. But
Right.
yeah, I think we're still in that. Who knows where we're going with that distinction between fully human and fully human machine.
Well, and there's a nice parallel to that, right? Like in the sciences, we have replication crises, we have p hacking, we have all of the things where it's like, it's not real science. And so one response to that was pre-register your studies, right? Tell me what you're going to do, tell me how you're going to do it, tell me what you think is going to happen so that you can't come back after the fact and be like, oh, I knew that all along, right? And so I think there might be, to what Nick is saying, there might be something similar to that. Like, I'm going to register it, but I'm going to tell you ahead of time where or how I'm going to use AI in this, right? Is AI my graduate assistant that's going to help me code some stuff, or is it going to help me find the journal that I need to send it to, or is it going to be completely out of there? And so once I pre-register and say I'm not going to use it, then I'm kind of ethically obliged to not use it, right? That's
Hmm.
one way that I think it might go.
Yeah.
yeah.
And I think it's important that faculty understand some basic parameters for use cases so that institutionally they can begin to make policies. Just as we saw in this exchange, Allison's field's journals are different from the journals in my field at the moment. But 10 years from now, there will probably be some uniformity. But in the meantime, we're in the gray area that Nick was talking about, and individual faculty are going to be working through it, in some cases, without institutional policy. So if we're a faculty panel and you three are clear on what generative AI can do, but I'm completely opposed to any trace of generative AI participation, just the idea that DJ used an AI to write an abstract, I'm going to deny him tenure. Without a policy, it becomes, like many things at our universities, an individual matter. And
Hmm.
that doesn't help for institutional decision making.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's move down a level or maybe up, depending on your point of view, to talking about students. And and how AI literacy is different, looks different when we're working with students than it does for faculty and staff.
And just for the listeners, the all of us have a little bit different roles, but the thing that kind of brought us together is we all do work with faculty, and when we're thinking about AI literacy, we're mainly thinking about what do faculty need to know. But that's probably a little bit different than what students need to know, or maybe it's not. But we just wanted to open the floor a little bit for a conversation about not just what old heads like us think AI literacy is, but maybe what that means, and is that a little bit different for the students that we're interacting with?
I hear a lot of people talk about how students need to know how to use generative AI. Students need to get good at prompting or they're not going to get a job. I think that is an incomplete picture of the future. I think students will, in all likelihood, if they've got a white collar job, they will probably have some contact with a generative AI application. But also, if they have no other knowledge in their little organic brains other than how to put something in a prompt window, they may not get that first job, or they may not keep that job, or within a couple of years, they're just going to be replaced by the next generation of an AI app. So when I'm talking to my honors students in the undergraduate seminar I teach, I am teaching them how to use some of the tools for some of the things we're doing in our class. And I'm continually asking them to do some work, often with pen and paper, and then do some more work, taking that initial work and introducing generative AI collaboration, and then evaluating the output and reflecting on the whole process. And I will frequently point out to them that the best outputs come out of work that they've already put a lot of effort into. Oh, you've read those 2 articles? I see how clear your prompt is. Oh, you've cited these sources. You specified the quotations you wanted the application to use. Yeah, nice job. Look at how clear this second version of your thesis statement is, or this paragraph outline is. So thinking about the relationship between what you want to do and what skills you bring to a human AI collaboration is part of the AI literacy that I'm sharing with them.
I think that's great, DJ, and I like this sort of pivot away from, here's what they need to know about the tech to also here's what they need to know about whatever it is that they need to know about. Nick and I wrote a piece for EdSource a couple months back with some of those same sort of themes in it, and you can see these episodes where somebody without domain knowledge is interacting with one of these things. These bubble to the surface occasionally, and sometimes some really heartbreaking articles and case studies where somebody thinks that they've redefined physics, but it was just them like locked in a room with Chat GPT and it was hallucinating for 2 days, right? And these things happen over and over again because people don't have the necessary knowledge to discern like what's a good output and what's a bad output, right? When am I on the right track and when is this completely out of bounds?
That's a really great point, Zach. Allison and I hosted an event last month, and we had 2 experts talking about writing in this teaching writing in this AI saturated moment. And we had a couple dozen faculty members in this room, and the experts talked for half an hour. They had really dynamic ideas. They were great speakers. They had a handout. All the faculty eagerly participated in this workshop. The Q&A was lively, and there were some really deep ideas and sophisticated perspectives on what we're talking about, human AI collaborations, and how we keep doing higher education. And then there was one faculty member from a business adjacent discipline who said, look, everything you've said is nice, but all you really need to know is prompting, or you're not going to get a job. And everything else you said is unnecessary. And everybody in the room, like nearly 30 of us, kind of looked at each other. And I looked at the guests and just nodded with like eyebrows up. And they went back to what they were saying. I've heard that perspective. Your ethics are nice, but all you need to know is prompting. Not often, but regularly. And I have to say, it's an intellectually unserious position.
Yeah.
It's not what we're doing in higher education, which has been since well before the emergence of ChatGPT in the public consciousness, has been about contextualizing ideas and projects in a wider social circle, and not to the exclusion of workforce preparation, but also I think our students will be better prepared for the workforce and whatever the future holds for them if they know more than prompting.
Totally.
Yeah, because prompting
Maybe
is
that's
sort
not
of
a high
the
bar.
necessary. Yeah, prompting is sort of the necessary but insufficient, right? Like you
Mhm.
need to know how to
Right.
do it. So, and we can show students, I think that's part of kind of literacy 101, at least in a lot of my classes, both undergrad and grad. It's like throw in the assignment as it's written, see what it does. Okay. Does everyone like, is it good? Is it bad? Usually it'll
Mhm.
spit out something. And so that's a big part of AI literacy for faculty and for students is like, it's really rare that the AI will tell you no. It
Mhm.
will do something, right? What that something is, you have to come into the evaluative piece. But then it's like, how can we get this better? Or where did it go wrong? And so that's where I'm seeing some really creative work coming out of the faculty sphere is that they're trying to learn it and they're trying to model that learning for students. And so I've seen a
Right.
number of them where like the assignment is break AI in health psychology or break AI in insert your class here. And they really are trying to
Mhm.
show students what it can and can't do, what it is and isn't good at. But part of that is, right? Part of that is the prompting. Like, what is a good prompt? What is a bad prompt? How can you get better at it? Where can you go ridiculous with it, right? Like, tell me in terms of Shakespeare how I should talk about vaccinations in the 21st century. That's just fun. I mean, it's just you're taking a bunch of stuff and putting it all together. But I think if we can come at it from this like intellectually curious space, we can show students that they
Right.
then can be intellectually curious within their disciplines in a broader sort of critical thinking sense, which seems to be everything published on AI in the academy, right? It's like, no one can think anymore. Yes,
Mhm.
they can, but you
Yeah.
have to show them
Oh my
how to
God.
think about prompting, how to think
Yeah.
about evaluating the output.
Drives
Like
me
Oh,
they
crazy.
had to
Yeah.
think to make the decision to use the AI. So it's not
Allison,
that they're not thinking.
Allison is trying to trigger Nick
Yeah.
here.
Oh,
We have a whole cache of these just
uh,
like completely hand wavy
yeah.
doomer articles that we send back and forth. Nick and I are actually writing something right now about this, but
It's
it
very
is just,
Chicken Little, right? Like
oh
the
my
earth is like the
gosh.
sky is falling,
Yeah, it's
everything
like,
is over.
It's like
or
suddenly because
I
of AI, you can't actually practice critical thinking anymore. It's just not possible. You can't
yeah,
do it, right?
No,
I mean,
it's
that's the
absolutely possible.
yeah.
yeah. It's just
And you
like,
can use AI to help students do that.
Yeah.
It can be
yeah,
a tool.
it's so frustrating because like I feel like all the people who write this and all the people that they're talking about that are in the academy, I'm like, yeah, it's hard, but like you could just try to do the work.
Mhm.
Have you thought about trying? Because
Well,
you could do that. You could give up, but working is an option too.
yeah, and
Um,
this is what comes back to like just education and good pedagogy, right? Like every time we do anything with AI, I just come back with my little like bell. Like, well, good teaching is good teaching and bad teaching is bad teaching. And AI is showing bad teachers that what they're doing is bad. Period. Like end of thought, hard stop, new
Right.
page. That's all it's doing, right? Like it's doing a lot, but it's showing you you can't do this anymore. Maybe you think you could have earlier, but it was bad before and now it's even worse now.
Right. Which brings us back to the teaching first approach. A lot
Yes.
of the solutions to this disruptive new technology take people back to the essentials of effective pedagogy. And that's challenging for a lot of faculty. And I get why. We didn't get, most of us didn't get advanced degrees in teaching college courses. Some people did. And so they're teaching college courses to people who are studying how to teach a college course. But that's a rather narrow amount of our faculty in the College of Education. The rest of us are specialists in other things, and we happen to be teaching as part of the profession. which is where centers of teaching and learning come in.
Okay, this has been awesome, everybody, and we could probably go on for another 3 or 4 hours here, but that would mean that we wouldn't have time for irresponsible speculation. So
Oh,
this is a fun time where we untether ourselves from reality and just peer into the future or into some alternative reality and think about what might be. So here's your
good.
irresponsible speculation prompt. Will there be a point where we will require AI literacy to teach? Maybe not in the CSU, but will some institutions make understanding this a precondition to work with students? Like you have to be this tall to ride this ride.
Right, right. I think this question has as a corollary a policy that goes something like classes at our university can only be taught by a human. Which
Yeah.
So I suppose it's entirely possible. Like, I know faculty who refuse to use the LMS Canvas on our campus and who really lacked the technical skills to do the pivot during the pandemic, and so distributed their home address and finished that first semester where we retreated from campus having students mail them hard copy assignments.
Listeners cannot see, but we are all in complete dismay at this.
So there are technical expectations that often go unspoken. Like, nobody asked me my typing speed when I applied for this job, but it was an assumption that I would be using a computer.
Right.
So I guess my response is a kind of lousy maybe. Allison, do you have a better answer?
I don't think I have a better answer. But I can see a future where like folks are incorporating AI into the curricular process. So we've got someone on our campus that's rolling out the Acorn toolkit, right? So how you get AI into your curriculum. Now, would that mean it's in every class? No. But if it's in your curriculum, then I could see a knowledge of AI, a working knowledge, however we're going to define that. I could see requiring that of the faculty, whether they're tenure track or lecturers, as a working understanding, in the same way that you need to have a background in psychology to be in the psych department,
Right.
or
Right.
related field, right? So not everyone kind of comes at the certain fields in a certain way, but you sort of need to have training. And I can think if we get to that point where there is AI in the curriculum, that you're going to require AI in order to teach the AI in the curriculum.
Yeah.
Now, again, if it's not in every class, it's going to be harder to do because it might be that Nick's class doesn't have it, but DJ, Zach's, and Allison's class does. So does that mean that Nick also needs to know it? I don't know the answer to that, but my guess would be yes, because I'm pretty sure most of us don't just teach one class and that's it.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
Here's a more irresponsible answer, if I may. Imagine a corporate dystopia. When I applied for my current job, I had to provide a phone number and an email address so they could contact me. What if in the future I needed to provide my OpenAI registration number? Because OpenAI has just kind of monopolized a particular technological space. And now I have to be registered with OpenAI, and it's just a matter of course.
Well, I mean, we
said,
have
"Oh,
that with
actually,"
Microsoft. I mean, Google login for
Yeah.
all of our credentialing and everything.
Sure.
I mean, maybe OpenAI eventually be our credentials.
Maybe so.
Nick and I have talked several times. We've had one of these irresponsible speculations and talked about a really dark scenario. And then we're like, I hope nobody's listening that can actually make a decision about that.
Yeah.
Sam Altman's like, ooh, good idea.
Good idea. Thank you for listening. If you're enjoying this podcast, please consider subscribing on your favorite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. You can find our writing on meltsintoair.org and on LinkedIn, Zach Justice and Nick Janos. Find these links and more in the show notes. If you have feedback or want to share an idea, email us at unfixed@meltsintoair.org. Thank you to Jamie Gunderson for producing and editing the show.